Hello, Palladium fans. We're here with another episode of the official History of Palladium Books, and I'm here with Kevin, and today we are pulling back the curtain on the mysterious Hitler Mouse and the story of the Defilers' massive confrontation, how they sort of set up their own demise and almost wiped out the Palladium fantasy world before we ever got to see it. So, Kevin, I'm just tell us about the story of the Defilers and Hitler Mouse.
Yeah, so I know everyone's probably listening to this and thinking this is ludicrous. And in some ways it kind of is, but it's just a great example of, I think, strong storytelling, paying attention to your game, your players, giving them what they want, and kind of giving them enough rope to hang themselves. Although it got to a point where you're absolutely right. Your intro was dead on, spot on. I thought it was the end of the campaign because, well, and I'll tell you why. So this is what happened. So last episode we talked about the Demon Mirror,
Yeah,
and we already established that the Palladium Desire was sort of like a little microcosm of Rift's Earth, a precursor to what the Rift's RPG would become. In that you had variations in space and time, you had dimensional portals, you had magic and technology. You even had magic and technology kind of cross and meld together. You had gods and demons, and you name it, it was in the Palladium of Desires. Now, the Palladium of Desires was a dungeon crawl. And when I first started to let people in, and remember, I started as a Dungeons and Dragons
right.
campaign, and it quickly and massively changed. So a lot of players would come to me and say, "Hey, I've got this D&D character, and he's like 5th level, and he's got this amazing magic item, and that amazing magic item, and this magic sword, and this magic gauntlet, and girdle, and helm, and you name it, they had it." And I always took it as sort of a challenge. So I'm like, "Yeah, sure, you can bring it in,
Yeah,
absolutely."
why not?
Because also as a game master, if I want to get rid of it, I'll find some way that they lose it or get it stolen or give it away to help somebody. There's all kinds of wonderful ways you can diminish your mistakes when you make them by allowing something you probably shouldn't have.
Well, and you're also from, like, again, we talked about how a lot of your storytelling is based off comic books, and so it didn't matter what Iron Man brought to the table. Bing Fang Foom had a way of dealing with it, and then Iron Man had to overcome, the loss of that.
Exactly. So the saga of the Hitler Mouse starts with two fun players that I really enjoyed, Alan Chudnow and Rusty Lamont. And Rusty Lamont, by the way, is his real name. And Rusty was a character. I loved all the guys. I had a great group of guys who were the Defilers. Beautiful players, the smart, fun. They really got into the role playing aspects of things.
Awesome.
So Rusty started out sort of a power gamer. He brought in this little dwarf who was one of those guys who, when you turned off the lights, you could read a book by all the magic items on him from the glow, And um, so Rusty was one of those guys who went to the Demon Mirror and got himself accidentally turned into an iron golem. And he loved being an iron golem, as any power gamer would. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
this
no, of course.
10 or 12-foot behemoth that's made of steel, and he just loved it. And Alan Chudnow, on the other hand, played a character called Purephone, and he was a hypochondriac from our tech level who was interested in magic and was kind of joined the Defilers as like a scientific research project, and discovered he had psionics and that he was actually a illusionist, became an illusionist. So he's an illusionist, human. And So in the course of one of our adventures, they run into this very paranoid wizard. And this wizard's clearly pretty powerful, and he has some connection to something else, and they wanted him to help them. But when I say paranoid, I mean absolute paranoid. And so he was just, and he could teleport. And so he would pop out, or they would encounter him, and he'd be like, and I tried to give him all these hints. I don't know how more. Sometimes I wonder what players are thinking. So I give him all these hints that this guy's really powerful. He's got connections to this guy and that guy that they know are really powerful. But the guy's super paranoid to the point where it's like, the minute he sees someone, he's like, oh, I don't. And he's an older, white-haired guy, like me, and long beard, and he's like, oh, I want no trouble, and they're like, oh yeah, no, we're not here for trouble, we just have some questions. No, questions always lead to trouble, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so they get frustrated because he gives them a little snippet of something here and there, but then he's like, no, you're getting too close, and he teleports farther away, and they step forward, and he's like, no, too many questions, and he disappears, or actually, in this case, he goes, they know where he is, they know where his study is, he opens his door and goes in and slams it shut. They're knock, 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 he's, go away, I want no trouble, and they're like, we just want to ask you no more questions, but we just have a couple, no. And they're like, fine, we'll leave you alone. He's like, great, I want no trouble. But we're marking your door. I don't know about you, but when an iron golem says, we're marking your door, that sounds like trouble.
It does sound like trouble and a threat.
And they're going to be coming back with their friends or whatever. It does, and it sounds like a threat. I thought
it does sound like a threat, yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So the next thing you know, this little old wizard pops up in front of him. He had because again, we're playing a D&D hybrid. He's got the wand of polymorph. And it was a cool thing where you do a random roll, and I think you had like 100 different possible outcomes, or if it didn't, I certainly turned it into that. And it rolls, and zap! And I'm like, okay, roll to save versus magic. And the iron golem fails. And I do the random roll, and it turns him into a mouse. And then the other guy is like, well, I tried to reason with the wizard, and I'm not going to cast an illusion. And I said, before you can do shit, he hits you with the wand. I do a random roll. He turns into a mouse. I mean, what's the odds? They both get turned into mice. Yeah. And
1 in 100.
And the wizard's just kind of like, oh, whew, and just happily walks into his room because trouble's over, right?
Right.
And shuts his door. So it was interesting to see the psychology of the two different players. So Alan Chudnow leaned into being a mouse. He was like, this is cool. Like, so, my gear and stuff, when I turn into a mouse, I mean, what happened to my clothes, my backpack and stuff? I go, it just all falls off of you. And you're just this little mouse who crawls out from under his gear and clothes and stuff. He's like, well, I have like a potion of healing. So like if one of the other defilers, or not healing, of invisibility, and I have another one of flight. So if I like took a sip and would hardly use up any of the potion at all, would I have that ability? I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great role playing right there.
And he's like, so wow, so like my vial of flight potion, that's like 50 or 100, times I can take it, right? And I'm like, yeah, at least 50. And he's like, awesome. So he has one of the Defilers cut a little piece of red fabric, and he drinks his potion, and he tie it around his neck, and he's flying around playing Mighty Mouse. Younger viewers will not know who Mighty Mouse is, but
yeah, I know who Mighty Mouse is.
Most people, over the age of 35, 40, know who Mighty Mouse is, and he's basically anthropomorphic superhero mouse, the equivalent of Superman.
Yeah.
And he's Mighty Mouse, and he had this great theme song of Mighty Mouse will save the day, and he's goes flying around. So Alan Chudnow's character, you're making his character Purephone the mouse, fly around and do things, and he's also doing clever stuff like, well, hey Kev, I'm a mouse, so like, is there enough space under that door that I can squeeze under the? I'll take my cape off, of course, and squeeze under that wizard's door and see what's in there. And I'm like, absolutely. So he squeezes down and looks around, and there's like this big library like this, but all magic books, and the wizard is there, and he's got his notebook open, and he's like muttering to himself. And Al's like, wow, so if I like came back and just waited and watched him practice magic or writing stuff, and could I try to memorize it? And I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
So he's just really into it. Meanwhile, Rusty is totally despondent.
Because he lost his iron golem.
Well, he went from being a badass warrior dwarf to a kick-ass iron golem to a stinking mouse. And he calls me up before the next game, and he's like, Kev, there's got to be some way I cannot be a mouse, and you can do this, and you can do that, and just help me. I can't be a mouse. I can't remain a mouse. This is, and the guy just sounded like, his dog just died, right? I mean, when I say he was despondent, I mean, he was despondent. And, and that's how he ultimately went back to the Demon Mirror and became Nexine, because he was Nexus, the Iron Golem. Became Nexine, the dwarf that had the magic axe, that wielded the magical axe that never missed.
Right, and wore the chainmail. The axe had the chainmail.
Yep, and that was sort of his saga. And he loved that. That gave him stuff he could really latch onto, and he ran with that later. Meanwhile, we're all 20-somethings, right? And so the guys ask me, the player group says, so Kev, so and again, hopefully it doesn't offend anybody. Maybe we have to have a warning in front of this episode. Risque topics, maybe. I don't know. But anyways, the player says to me, so Kev, mice are famously, sexually active, just like rabbits.
And fertile, yes.
Right? And so are there like girl mice around here? And I'm like, there must be. It's a dungeon and it's unkept. Yeah. There's got to be mice all over the frickin' place. So he finds all these female mice and he has sex with them. And, he kind of woos them and is like, yeah, I grab him and I'm flying and I'm, doing my thing, having sex with one mouse to another mouse. And it's like, whatever, dude. Yeah. And every time the Defilers came back to the dungeon, he'd be like, yeah, do I see a cute female mouse? And I'm like, yeah, sure, So at
get it over with. Just get it out of your system. Moving on.
So at some point, one of the Defilers or a group of Defilers comes to me and says, and this is during a game session, he says, so Kev, and probably when he's like, yeah, I'm out, banging some mouse. And the guys say, so Kev, he's a mouse, but he still kept his IQ, his intelligence, and you have him able to still cast illusions and magic spells, but at like 1/10 of their power level, of what the shoot would be a normal power level for a human.
Yeah.
Is he passing any of these traits on to the mice? And I said, wow, that's a great question. And I said, 5% chance. And I said, Al, you roll. It's your character. So Alan Chudnow rolls, gets like a 2. And I'm like, yes, he's passing on his intelligence and some of his other abilities. Hit points. So all these mice have, if a normal mouse has, say, 5 or 4 or 3 hit points, these mice have double that. So they're kind of tough. And because he's passing on his intelligence, and again, we roll to see, is it at least basic human level intelligence? And the answer was yes. So you got mice who, compared to normal mice, are superhuman. I mean, they're like Wolverine compared to a normal mouse, right?
Yeah.
And whether you think of an actual Wolverine or the superhero,
Yeah.
either analogy works.
Either works. Yeah.
And so they're smart. And so because the Palladium of Desires was a sort of early version of Rifts, at least in my subconscious mind, the time was weird. So sometimes the Defilers would go in and spend half a day or a day in the dungeon, and they'd come out and 5 minutes had passed. Other times they'd go in for half a day or a day and come out and 5 years had passed. And they would go on other adventures and go to other worlds and stuff through the Palladium of Desire. And so a number of years had passed. And they come back, and well, and again, what's the life cycle of a mouse?
Right.
So they come back, and it's like 10 generations later. And they realize these mice are smart. They see mice using little basic tools and stuff. And, you know, he goes over as a mouse, and he starts asking him stuff. And they're kind of like, go away. We don't know you, stranger. And he's like, you don't know me. I am Purephone, the All-Father
Oh,
of
good
your
Lord.
species. And they're like, really? And he's like, I can prove it. He takes a sip of well, actually, because he had basic psionics, he levitates up, and they're like, ooh, and he casts, you know, an illusion, and they're like, ooh, you know, and he does sort of the Wizard of Oz thing, and all the mice are like, oh, All-Father, All-Father, and he's like, I want you to gather up all the mice, and I want to talk, and, you know, at this point, there's like 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 mice. And he's like, I want to create a spy network. You guys are going to go out, and he gives them this, and he worked out this very meticulous, very elaborate, this is your mission, this is what you do, you spy on this place and this person and this and that and other thing. I want you to go out of the dungeon and into the Palladium town, and I want you to look for this and that, and keep an eye out for this kind of trouble or that kind of trouble and supernatural beings and all this stuff. And a lot of it was with good intentions, you know, to protect the town and stuff, but also to get them a lot of information about the Thieves Guild. He also sends them to study magic from that wizard.
Oh, good.
No one's going to notice a mouse. I want you guys to go in here. I want you to go in there, and I'm going to teach you how to read. I want to have you read his books, and like you just sit on the shelf there where he won't notice you, or even on the back of his chair, and you watch as he's writing down incantations or practicing magic.
So he created a cult loyal to him that then he turned into a magical spy network. I can't see how this goes wrong.
Yeah, but they sure didn't. So they go on adventure, and this kind of works good. They get some information about some bad guy. They're able to stop some stuff. But then they go on another mission where like 20 years had passed. And it might have only been 10, but still, how many generations of that?
Yeah.
For a mouse? I mean, holy crap. I mean, they can have a litter every month.
Yeah.
And so anyways, the Defilers come back, and they see these groups of mice kind of scurrying around, and one of the groups stops and points, and they hear in their head, who are you? What do you want here? And they're like, where's that coming from? The mice? The mouse? One of these mice? And, you know, the Defilers, it was like a scene out of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. It's just a bunny rabbit! And the mice are like, you must come to our leader, and so he can assess what we should do with you guys. And they're like, fuck off. You know, you're a stinking mouse. And they start to go, and they say, roll to save versus magic or psionic attack. I forget which one it was. So what I did was, they're little mice. So while they interrogated virtually all of the All-Father's base abilities, so they've got at least basic to average human intelligence. They've got uh, 1 point of PPE and 1 point of ISP, which on its own isn't a whole lot, doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But because they were such a tight-knit group and organized, and because they're smart now, they're avoiding cats, they're controlling cats, they're they're not dying. There's at this point, the group will soon discover there are like millions, tens of millions of these intelligent frickin' mice. And what they can do is pool their one ISP each in groups to cast a spell or a psychic ability. So if you got 20 mice, they can cast a spell that costs up to 20 PPE.
Yeah.
Or if there's 100 mice or 1,000 mice, I mean,
Yeah.
they're pretty impressive and unstoppable. Now, thankfully, they still kind of perceive the world from a mouse's point of view. So, but anyways, they're like, one of the main defilers. In fact, it might have been Lord Coke. Tries to stomp one. He says, "Just go away," and stomps his foot at one. And that's when I'm like, roll to save versus magic. The guy rolls like a 5, goes down, and the rest of the group, what just happened? I said, I don't know. You don't know. You don't know what happened. And they're like, well, what's going on here? Shoo, mice. Roll to save versus like 10 defilers go down. They all miss. They're rolling like crap. So like 10. I mean that's almost half the group is down from these mice, and now they're getting a little like, what's going on, Kev? What's going on? And these mice, are like, you must come with us. And a whole bunch of, it was like something out of like Gulliver's Travels. All these mice, like 100 mice, drag along each fallen defiler because they were using a sleep spell on them, knocking them all out, sleeping paralysis. And the rest of the defilers come marching in, and there's this huge hall that used to be something else that they knew about, and they're like, what the? And it's now like the cathedral, the big like place where the mice gather.
Yeah.
And there's Hitler Mouse. He's got a couple extra thick little,
Whiskers.
Yep, whiskers, and they're dark black, and he's like, and it's very much just, I am the this, I am the that, you will obey, all humanity will bow down before us. And the group's like, oh crap. And there's like a million frickin' mice just in this room. Because it's this big hall, big room. And the group's like, Kev? And I'm like, you guys are the ones who started this.
Yeah.
You're the ones who insisted I roll to see if he passed on any of his human traits, his intelligence. And
You're the one who created a cult of magically active, psionically active spy mice and then left them alone for 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And they're like, oh my gosh. And Hitler Mouse spills out this whole plan, how they've already got spies in Timoro and in Byzantium, and they're on all these ships, because, mice and rats kind of ships, and how they've spread across the Palladium world. And Hitler Mouse is about to launch his, plan to conquer the entire world and enslave all humans, because they will answer to us. Kind of thing. And, they'll have humans with basically a little mouse on their shoulder telling them what to do.
Yeah.
And the group is like, and I'm like, dude. And Al Chudnow, who plays, Purephone, the Allfather, steps forward and goes, stop this! I am the Allfather. And he rises up like he has in the past, and the Hitler Mouse is like, you're no Allfather. The Allfather would have died long ago. And he's like, no, but I am a god. I am the Allfather. And he's like, you could be anybody. We don't know you. And by the way, there's like little shrines and paintings on the wall, well, low to the wall,
yeah,
of the All-Father and stuff. There's like scene
Yeah.
stuff, and including the Defilers. And they're like, you can't be the Defilers. They disappeared 2 decades ago, and
Yeah.
the All-Father would have perished forever. And he's like, no, I am immortal. I am the All-Father. And he kind of rises up and it starts to weave some illusion, and the Hitler mouse hits him with a lightning bolt, magic lightning bolt. And it's like, I think it was like 21 hit points of damage. Zap! Now again, that's where thankfully the mice still think like mice.
Yeah.
So by slamming him with this, it was probably a 66 lightning bolt, no normal mouse could survive that.
Right.
They would be atomized. And I'm like, Alan, how many hit points do you have left? And he like grabs his sheet, his character sheet. He's like, shoot, I've got like 5 hit points left. And I'm like, okay, what are you doing? And I describe how the All-Father was up there and he gets zapped by this lightning bolt, and all the mice are like, and because Hitler mouse and his higher up echelon,
Yeah.
used their, and I go, yeah, there's this flash, and the All-Father goes down, falls to the ground, and there's smoke rising up from his limp body. And I go like this to Alan, and he goes, you see the All-Father's body tremble? He rises up shakily, and he raises up into the air again and says, you see, I am the All-Father! I am immortal! You cannot destroy me! And I just kind of figured I'll roll 20-sided die and see, a couple times and see, 1 to 10, the mice don't buy it. 11 or higher, the mice are like, he's the All-Father.
Yeah.
I kept rolling high. I roll like 5 times and I'm like, yeah, all the mice, even Hitler mouse's, minions are like, the All-Father, the All-Father, we're so sorry. And the Hitler mouse is like, still like, no, he's an imposter. He can't be the All-Father. I am your leader. Obey me. And then, Pure Phone casts his own lightning bolt and just fries this little sucker. And he's like, I am the All-Father. And they're like, yeah. Do anyone else defy me? I mean, it was just beautiful, beautiful role playing on the part
Oh,
of
it's
it.
awesome.
And the rest of the Defilers are like, oh, thank God, what are we going to do now with all these mice? And that became a question for a long time. So Alan had them withdraw all their troops. He sent out, messengers. You go out into the world and you bring all these guys back, leave a few in the Western Empire. And we'll still keep eyes on the Thieves Guild in town and a few other people. But,
Yeah.
You bring them all back. And I want you to devote your lives to just studying for now. And you don't believe any more false prophets like Hitler Mouse. And you wait for me to return, because I will return, kind of thing. And you never attack the Defilers. I want you guys to memorize these guys and paint their exact likenesses on the walls so everyone knows who the Defilers are. And you never attack them. They are my people. They're under my protection. They're my friends. They are equal to me. They were just going easy on you, this time, because it's my job to control my people, kind of thing. It was just freaking fantastic. It was just masterful role playing. And they had no idea what to do with these things, because the mice are going to be a threat. And at some point, Paraphone is going to die. I mean, he's going on these adventures. He could get killed all the time. And plus the big question was, okay, he passed on some of his genes and abilities to the mice. How much of a mouse is he? Is he a human that looks like a mouse?
Yeah.
Or is he a mouse physiology who by mice standards, he's ancient already.
Yeah.
Even if only real time was a couple of years,
Yeah.
he could die any time if he
Yeah.
has mouse physiology. So they're like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Well, they ended up one of their other adventures. They ended up in a world with samurai trolls and ninja orcs and bugbears, and they ended up. Uh, and then I think they found some. So they sent some mice there to keep an eye on them and to try to help them do good things. Because of course, the All Father gives them these mandates to, oh no, you only do good. Humans are not the enemy. They're barbarians who fear us for good reason. Says the All
Yeah.
Father. And
Yeah.
the mice buy into that. Yeah, that's right. We're mice.
That's right.
We are not men, kind of thing. And it's like, okay. And uh, they finally found this world where there was nobody. It was just all like animals and things had not evolved into intelligent life forms. And they ended up sending and the mice bought into it because, well, one, the All Father.
Yeah.
Come on, if God appeared to you, you're probably going to drop to your knees and do anything he says.
Right.
So the mice were like, and he's like, okay, this is our world. I found a world for us. It's like a paradise. And I'm going to send you guys all there. And I want you to, develop this world and continue creating our peaceful society. And they bought into that, and they all, as far as they know, all the mice got sent into this world. And I'm like, again, really smart role playing. And that wasn't just Alan. I think that was like the Defilers were famous for kind of, okay, huddle! And they would all kind of, come up with a solution through debate and voting. And so I think someone else suggested the idea, and then they figured out this plan, and, the All Father, implemented it. But again, I thought that was very clever.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And it was just a great story, and it's a great example of here are just being silly young adults, all males,
Yeah.
being stupid and silly. And then someone, the minute someone says to me as a game master, but what if?
Yeah.
My gear's going, and I'm like, oh, how fair or unfair am I going to be in this? And that's
Well, the
where
dice tell a story, right?
Yep. And
Yeah.
it just, and all I did with the whole Hitler mouse and all that stuff was I took what the All Father had given, the agenda All Father had given.
Mm-hmm.
I took in consideration the generations that had passed, that some power monger is going to rise up because humans tend to be that way.
Yeah.
They got more human traits, then somebody's going to rise up and want to control this power base, recognize the power they have and want to control it. And there it was.
So buried in the Palladium fantasy books, are there any hints to this, or was this a Defiler story that kind of you've kind of kept close to the chest for now?
Well, as I had mentioned before, I always felt like the Defiler story was unique unto itself and too precious
Yeah.
to share with the world. But yeah, that attitude has changed 40
Yeah.
years later. And everyone wants to hear the stories, and they're freaking great stories. I
They're
would call,
great stories.
individuals, and they would be like, "Oh my God, this is fantastic! You need to write a novel, or do it in a video or something." And
Yeah.
so that's what I'm doing. And will I incorporate some of these things into the Palladium Desires if and when I ever write it as a series of adventure source books? Probably.
I mean, as a Palladium fan, we've been talking about the Palladium of Desires and the Defilers since essentially day one we've known about them. So I would be uh, very excited to see those notes that you found for these videos turn into something gameable here. And I realize we're making no promises, internet, but a solid maybe.
Well, certainly a solid G. I would love to see it, and I think other
Yeah.
Gamers would love to see it, and that's all I need to know to get that kind of percolating in my mind and thinking about it.
Awesome.
So we'll see. We'll see if I ever get around to it. I got so many things I need to get done first. That'll take a couple of years, 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
We'll see. But that's the kind of thing that might be a lot of fun to do. And the stories are epic, and they
They
are
are.
fantastic. And certainly the Palladium Desires would make a fun place to visit and explore
Oh
and
yeah. Oh yeah.
create your own. I mean, because we had so many other things. I mean, there was the Terrible Trio, which is how the Defilers got so powerful that they were, because these guys. So as the Defilers were um, growing in power and fame, because they would tame things, and things would come out of the Palladium of Desires and trash the town, and if the Defilers are around, they'd step up and stop them.
Yeah.
And when parts of the town got destroyed, the people didn't realize that the Defilers were actually kind of responsible for that, because they had this, as we mentioned before, I think, this terrible knack of playing with fire. One of the main guys, the high priest of Narabium, the forgotten god that they were building up, trying to reestablish, they his favorite two spells were Will of Fire and River of Lava. And when you open it up in a town made of wood,
Yeah.
he also liked summoning elementals. A couple of them did, and one of my favorite stories there was they summon an fire elemental, of course.
Of course.
And in my world, elementals they're not necessarily stupid, but they're exactly what the name says. They're creatures of nature
Yeah,
and
they're like primal.
energy. Right. They're
Yeah.
primal beings, magical beings, and as creatures of magic who don't understand humans at all. I mean, it's sort of like us saying, I understand the mentality of a fish
Yeah.
or an ant colony or a hive of bees. That's the elemental's understanding of human beings. So there was a bad guy getting away, and they had this fire elemental there, and he says to the elemental, go capture that man. And so this guy is running into buildings, and so is the elemental. And the elemental, of course, isn't even opening doors. It just
No, he's just walking through them.
slams right through it
Yeah.
and burn. And wherever he goes, things are catching on, drapes and clothing and tablecloths, and the wooden structures are all catching on fire. And the next thing you know, half the friggin' town is on fire. And then but the townspeople assumed it was the bad guys who were responsible, and the Defilers, out of guilt as much as anything, of course they run around saving people and extinguishing fire and stuff, and of course they go and rebuild the town and they make it better than it was the first time. So in the eyes of the populace, it's like, oh, the Defilers, they're the greatest heroes on the planet. And they're like, yeah, kinda.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much. I think we've got one or two more Defiler episodes, at least for now, and then we'll get back to our history sections. But I'm looking forward to everything we have planned, not just for this year, but for everything we're going to be talking about in 2025. So
When
thank you so much.
I would like to mention, because I
Oh yeah.
don't know about you, JM, but I'm getting a lot of people asking, because I'm doing a history thing also with
Hmm.
the Glitter Boys.
Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about our history and background and stuff on Legion of Myth.
Yeah.
And the thing that a lot of people are asking about, because we've done a couple of these episodes with Legion of Myth, and it happened a little bit kind of just naturally with Glitter Boys in a couple episodes, where we talk about like game design and
Hmm.
rules and how to run an adventure or game, or to be a good GM
Yeah.
tips. So I just want to let people know, because I get questions, are you ever going to talk about those kind of things? And yes, JM and I are. In fact, before
Yeah.
this interview started, we talked about some of the subjects
Yeah.
we'd like to cover. So those will be coming. But this started out as a history of Palladium and the Defilers are really part of that
They
history.
really are. Well, and
So
I'm looking forward to doing game master topics, doing
game
talking about
design.
game design and role playing and like this. I don't know that we'll ever be done with the history of Palladium books, but the title will at least change as we make new playlists on the channel and kind of, slot them into different categories. But if you like what we're doing, please give us a thumbs up on YouTube. Please subscribe. This will be the place where all of these come out. We set them all as premieres, usually about 4 or 5 days in advance, so that you know that they're coming. We release them every other Thursday. And we've got a
And
lot of episodes in the can.
we sure do. I mean, I think that we're up. I think we're past 30 at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also let us know what you guys and gals would love to see us do.
100%.
Because we'll slot it in. It
Yeah,
may take several months, but we'll certainly consider it
we definitely will.
and do it. I didn't want to jump into, and neither did JM. We didn't want to jump into doing like GM talks and stuff because we weren't sure that that's what people would like to hear.
Yeah.
And now that we know it, we're going to incorporate it.
Yeah. Well, we will be back in 2 weeks with more History of Palladium books. We're going to continue with the Defilers. And until then,